One of the things that helped me the most to lose 70 pounds and keep it off for over 5 years now has been keeping meals really simple, quick, and easy to throw together. And some of those meals that are the easiest for me have been bowls. If you guys have been following me for a little, you've seen me show bowls throughout a bunch of my what I eat in a day, what I eat in a week videos. And I've done a couple different recipe videos, some of them in my cookbook and some will be in my upcoming cookbook. But I decided to put them all together in a compilation for this video today. And I'm just gonna be going through 24 different bowl recipes, how I put them together, and the different ingredients I use. The good thing about bowls is that you can mix them up so much. So I hope that you get some inspiration from this video, but don't think that you have to stick to the exact recipes that I'm sharing. This is more just for inspiration, and you can kind of sub in the things that you enjoy more. Even when it comes to the base of the bowl, I like to use jasmine rice because that's just my favorite type of rice, and I like to use rice because I find it's just a little bit more filling. But you could also do cauliflower rice, couscous, lettuce, anything that you want to do as a base works depending on how you want to work it into your plan. But for me, I like to use jasmine rice, and you'll see that in most of these bowls. I'm gonna get started talking through all these different recipes. I hope you guys enjoy this video. If you do, please go ahead and give it a like and subscribe to my channel. It really helps me out. So thank you so much, and I hope you guys enjoy this. The first bowl that I'm starting with today is a Cobb salad inspired bowl, and I actually have a mix of brown jasmine rice and regular jasmine rice because that's just what I happen to have on hand. Then I just have a grilled chicken breast, and this is actually just from Sam's Club. They're pre-cooked. You can have it cold, but I heated mine up in the air fryer for a couple minutes, and then I already had some center cut bacon made, so I'm just chopping up 2 slices of that. You can use any type of tomato for this bowl, but I just happen to have some grape tomatoes on hand, so I'm chopping those up into smaller pieces, as well as some lettuce. And I'm just using some romaine that I had on hand, but you could also do shredded lettuce or just iceberg head lettuce, whatever you have works well for this. And then I also had some red onion already diced up in the fridge, so I'm just adding that to the bowl as well. Then I also had an avocado cup. You could use this or like a guacamole one, but I used half the container for 1 point. I also prepped some hard-boiled eggs for this, and I actually just use a hard-boiled egg cooker. I got it off Amazon, and it just makes them perfectly every time. So I'm using one of those, which is 0 points on WeightWatchers. And usually Cobb salads come with blue cheese or like a goat cheese or something, but I'm not a big fan of either of those, so I'm using feta cheese on my bowl. Sometimes I get the reduced fat option, but I didn't find that today, so just regular feta cheese. And sometimes I don't add a dressing to this, but today I was actually really craving honey mustard, so I just used a point of Bolthouse honey mustard dressing to top it off, and that was the entire Cobb salad bowl. Next up, we're making one of Adam's favorite bowls, and that is the buffalo chicken bowl. So I've got some cooked chicken breast here, and usually I'll put it in my KitchenAid mixer to shred it perfectly. I honestly don't know why I didn't do that this time, but I just used 2 forks to shred it up, and then I'm mixing in some buffalo sauce, and this Sweet Baby Ray's buffalo is one of his favorites. I wanted it to have a little extra flavor too, so I added some garlic salt and minced onion to the chicken, and then I just put that aside. Then for the veggies that I'm using today, I'm just dicing up some mini cucumbers, some green onion, and then some grape tomatoes. And this is pretty much always the way that I do the base of rice. I already have some pre-cooked jasmine rice in the fridge that I just use my food scale to weigh out a portion, which usually it's about 130, 135 grams of cooked jasmine rice that I do for 5 points. I add the chicken to the rice and I pop it in the microwave quickly, and then it's time for the veggies. So I add the cucumber, some carrots, the tomato. I also had some blue corn tortilla chips, so I just crushed up a few of those for some crunch and saltiness. And then, like I mentioned, I'm not a big fan of blue cheese, but I do like the Bolthouse blue cheese dressing. It kind of clogged my bag for a second because it's got little chunks in there, but it's really good and it's the perfect thing to end off this bowl, and that is the buffalo chicken bowl. Moving on, I'm making a quick and easy breakfast bowl with a base of hash brown potatoes. So I just like to use the Simply hash brown potatoes, and I know this pan is bad. I've gotten rid of it since this video. It's a little bit older, but anyway. I spray the pan with some nonstick spray and cook the hash browns until they start to get brown. And then I've got some turkey sausage I just heated up in the microwave. It's just a breakfast turkey sausage crumble. I already had some veggie mix made in the fridge, which is pepper, onion, and zucchini. And then I also added some reduced fat cheddar cheese. Most of the time I actually use scrambled eggs for this, but today I was feeling more of like a fried egg with a little bit of the yolk, so that's what I did. I topped the bowl with that. Sometimes I like to add some hot sauce, but that's it. Okay, I feel like I'm going to be saying this a lot throughout this video, but this is another one of my favorite bowls, and it is a Reuben-inspired bowl. Reuben sandwiches have been my favorite since I was a kid, so I wanted to find a way to make a lightened up bowl. And first I'm starting out by making some homemade sauce that's supposed to be like a Thousand Island. You could always just use a Thousand Island dressing for this, but I used some light mayo, a little bit of rice vinegar, some ketchup, diced up some onion as well as some pickle, and then added some like garlic powder, garlic salt to make a sauce. That way it's just a lower point option because I use the light mayo and I control what goes into it instead of sometimes buying salad dressings at the store. I feel like I've actually had a hard time finding a good lower point Thousand Island dressing option. But once I chop everything up, I just whisk that together until it makes a sauce, and then I put it to the side. For these Reuben bowls, I really like to use this pastrami lunch meat that I get from the store. And the brand I like to use is Hillshire Farms, but there are some other options. Sometimes I'm able to find a turkey pastrami that works really well for this bowl, but I have my base of jasmine rice, and then I'm adding some veggie mix that I already had prepped. Again, that's just pepper, onion, and zucchini. And you'll see that I use a veggie mix in a lot of these bowls because it's something that's easy for me to prep, and then I can just assemble these in a few minutes. So having it ready and cooked in the fridge just makes this that much quicker to incorporate vegetables, and there's 0 points, which just makes it more filling without adding points. I'm also dicing up some pickles. I did put some in the sauce, but I like to add pickles as well, and then some sauerkraut that I just strained out a little bit, which this is also 0 points on WeightWatchers. Then I add a good amount of the sauce that I made as well as some cheese. Usually for this bowl I use Swiss because that's what comes on Reuben sandwiches, but I didn't have any, so I just used some light mozzarella cheese and it worked just as well. And then that's everything I add to this bowl. I mix it up and enjoy. This next bowl I'm making is inspired by one of my favorite takeout meals, but it's something I don't get that often because it's like 35 minutes away, and that is Knock Knock. It's a Mediterranean restaurant where they add falafel to things. There's a lot of cucumber and couscous and everything, so that's the type of bowl I'm making today. They have some fresh salsas with cucumber, so that's kind of what I'm making here. I just diced up some mini cucumbers and some grape tomatoes. And then I just tossed that together to combine with a little bit of garlic salt to add some flavor to it. Usually I get chicken on my Knock Knock bowls, so today I'm just using some cooked chicken breast I had at home. I did want it hot for this bowl, so I just sprayed a pan with some nonstick spray and chopped up the chicken into smaller pieces and just cooked it to heat it a little bit. And I did add some seasonings to the chicken just to give it some extra flavor, but while I'm doing this, I also have some pre-made falafel cooking in the air fryer. I just get the falafel from the freezer section at Trader Joe's, so while that's heating up, I'm getting the rest of this assembled, and I did make a base of couscous for this bowl today instead of jasmine rice. And I had also made some pickled onions earlier, so I'm using a good amount of those. Those add some really good flavor to this and crunch as well. Once the falafel are done cooking in the air fryer, I just dice them up into smaller pieces because I just like to have smaller pieces of everything in my bowls, especially when I mix them all together. And then I put a couple scoops of hummus in the center, and that is everything. And usually I like to use a garlic hummus. I feel like it's the perfect flavor for this, but you could really use whatever you have on hand. And I find that especially with the falafel, this is always one of the most filling bowls that I make. This next bowl is inspired by a club sandwich, but instead of bread, we're going to be using jasmine rice as the base. This one is mostly just chopping up things to add to it, and I don't really heat anything up other than the jasmine rice for this. So I start out by dicing up some tomato, some red onion, and then one of my favorite toppings when it comes to sandwiches is banana peppers, so I'm dicing up a good amount of those to add to this bowl as well. And again, what's nice about these bowl recipes is you can customize them to use whatever ingredients you prefer to. I'm using turkey lunch meat today, but you could use ham, you could use chicken. It really just depends on what you prefer or what you have on hand. So I also had some ham steaks that I diced up, and I also really wanted to have lettuce on this. So once I heated up the rice as the base, I just start to add everything that I chopped up. So I've got the turkey, tomato, ham, banana peppers, red onion, and then I did also chop up some center cut bacon. And it's nice because that was just another ingredient that I already had cooked and prepped in the fridge. So I just grabbed 2 slices out and chopped them up. I wanted to include some type of avocado on this, so I decided to just use an avocado cup. That way it kind of worked as a sauce for the bowl. And then just like they add spices to sandwiches, I topped it with a little bit of garlic and herb seasoning to add a little bit of extra flavor. Moving on, we are making a shrimp teriyaki bowl, and one of my favorite ingredients to use that's high in fiber and protein is edamame. I usually just get the frozen shelled edamame from Trader Joe's and then heat it up in the microwave, so that's what I did, as well as cooking up some veggies on the stove. I sprayed a big pan with nonstick spray and then cooked some broccoli, red bell pepper, zucchini, and red onion together in some soy sauce. It's always just quick and easy to make a stir-fry veggie mix like this, and especially with a shrimp teriyaki bowl, that's always one of my favorites. But if I don't have this or time to make it, I can usually just use veggie mix, which is pretty much pepper, onion, and zucchini anyway. Today I specifically wanted pineapple in this bowl though, so I did marinate some chicken breast in a teriyaki sauce for an hour before this. And then I just cooked it on the stove until the chicken was fully done. I added the shrimp and cooked that until it was done, and then I added in the pineapple and let it sit till it was heated up. And once the shrimp and chicken were done cooking, that's when I heated up my base of jasmine rice just in the microwave. I had it already pre-cooked, so I just add it to the bowl using my food scale. And then I just quickly assemble the bowl, adding the rest of the ingredients. So the edamame I had cooked in the microwave. I did add a little bit of garlic salt to the shrimp, but that was it. I just cooked it in the same pan as the chicken and pineapple off to the side because I didn't want to dirty a pan, and it worked out that way. But I add the chicken and pineapple mix and then the rest of the veggies and drizzle just a little bit of teriyaki sauce on top. I've honestly tried so many different teriyaki sauces that I enjoy and are pretty low point. Usually you can have 1 tablespoon or 2 tablespoons for only a couple points. So this is the Mandarin teriyaki sauce from Panda Express, but lately I've also really been enjoying the Kinder's teriyaki sauce. I love the combination of balsamic and pesto, and today I'm making a caprese style bowl. I cut up a chicken breast and put it in a container with some basil, pesto, kale dip from Trader Joe's to let it marinate for a little bit. I honestly don't even know if they still make that dip, but any type of pesto or like basil dip would be good for that, just to give the chicken a little extra flavor. But I'm just slicing up the veggies that I'm going to be using, including some grape tomatoes, some fresh basil, and then some lettuce. I also have some mini pearl mozzarella balls that I chop up into smaller pieces, and those are usually 3 points for the serving. And while I've been chopping everything up, I've just had the chicken cooking quickly on the stove. And I like to use a good serving of the chicken because that's most of the protein, and then I also use a lot of lettuce for this one for the crunch. And then my favorite part about this bowl, after I add the fresh basil in the middle, I drizzle it with some balsamic glaze. And the glaze is definitely a little bit of a higher point option if you use a lot. I usually only do about a tablespoon or a half a tablespoon. And then sometimes I'll just make a balsamic vinaigrette or something if I don't have the glaze on hand. But anything really works for that flavor, and it's just really good to have the mozzarella with the tomato and basil. I love sushi, and this next bowl is inspired by a simple California roll. And sometimes I'll specifically use sushi rice for these bowls. I just didn't have any right now, so I'm just using jasmine rice as the base. But sometimes it is worth it to take the extra effort to make a little bit of sushi rice with the rice vinegar and sugar just to add that stickiness and sweetness to it. But anyway, I start by dicing some things up, including the cucumber and some imitation crab. I also slice up an avocado, and then I wanted to make a spicy mayo to go with this, so I'm just using my food scale to weigh out some light mayo, and then I add some sriracha. And this is another one that comes together so quickly because I don't really need to cook anything other than heating up the rice in the microwave if it was pre-made. So I start to assemble it with the imitation crab, the cucumbers. I've also got some shredded carrots that are 0 points and add a really good crunch. Then one of my favorite parts about this bowl is I get little seaweed papers and crumble those up a little bit because they add some good saltiness and really make it taste like sushi. And then one of my favorite ingredients in sushi is when they add green onions, so I have to include a little bit of those chopped up. I add the avocado and the spicy mayo, and then that is everything for my California sushi bowl. Burger bowls are another one that I make the most frequently out of all the different recipes I'm sharing today, mostly because I have the ingredients on hand a lot of the time. So I start by chopping up the veggies I'm going to be using, and I actually really like to have sauteed onions on my burgers, so I heat those up in a pan on the stove. I just chopped up some red onion for that. And then I also wanted some fresh tomatoes, so I'm just dicing up some tomato to add to the bowl. There's a couple different lower point burger sauces that you can get. Actually, Bolthouse recently released a dressing that was like a burger dressing. But I don't always have that on hand, so sometimes I'll just make my own sauce using some relish, some ketchup, and light mayo. I also added a little cayenne pepper and garlic salt, and then I just whisk that together until it forms a sauce. And I usually like to prep burgers ahead of time, so sometimes I'll use ground chicken, ground turkey, or even lean ground beef to make burgers. They're always just an easy option to prep ahead of time and then add to different meals like this bowl. So today I've got a turkey burger and I'm just chopping that up into smaller pieces. I also really feel like bacon adds some good flavor, so whether it's even just one piece or two, today I'm using 2 slices of center cut bacon, but it adds a nice flavor and crunch to the burger bowl. And then it's already time for the easy part, assembling the bowl. So I heated up the jasmine rice in the microwave with the turkey burger because those were prepped ahead of time. So I just cook those for about 1.5 minutes until they're heated through. Then I can add the rest of the toppings, including the tomatoes, the bacon, the onions I've had cooking on the stove. Then I've also got some pickles that I'm adding, as well as some shredded lettuce, which any lettuce works, it's just what I had on hand. And then I add the rest of the sauce that I made. And with this specific bowl today, I didn't add cheese, but that's also another ingredient that I really like to add to burger bowls. Sometimes I'll just add some shredded cheese, or I'll even slice up a slice of cheddar. This next bowl is a little bit of a Mexican-inspired chipotle type bowl. I'm going to add a good amount of veggies to it, so I'm chopping up some different bell peppers that I'm just going to cook on the stove. I didn't have any veggie mix like my normal veggie mix made, but I did have some prepped that was just some tomato and zucchini cooked, so I didn't add any zucchini to the peppers like I usually would. Instead, I just did the cooked peppers this time. But this is also a quick and easy way to add some extra protein and fiber to the meal. So in a pot on the stove, I just have a can of corn and a can of pinto beans. And to this, I'll usually add some seasoning or sauce. So I've got this Roja sauce that I'm using today, but honestly, anything works. Sometimes I'll do like mild Taco Bell sauce. And while I'm cooking this mix, I also heated up the extra mix that I had that was zucchini and tomato, and then I can start assembling my bowl. So that's what I have first. For my protein for this bowl today, I wanted to do chicken, so I just had some grilled chicken nuggets in the freezer, and I just popped those in the air fryer, and then I used my kitchen scissors to cut them into smaller bites. I honestly don't always use chicken for this bowl. I actually prefer to use ground taco meat, but I don't have any made. But usually I'll just make that using ground chicken, turkey, or beef, and some taco seasoning. It's actually sad to see this because I used to love this salsa from Trader Joe's and they got rid of it, but it's a nice lower point salsa option that adds a good sauce to this bowl when you mix it all together. And then I add my cooked peppers as well as the queso that I also used to get from Trader Joe's, which they don't have anymore, but usually I'll do a shredded cheese, or I found some other different brands of queso that I like as well, so I usually will add those to this bowl. And I do like to heat the queso up. This was the end of it, so I just popped it in the microwave and heated it up that way and added it to the bowl. And then the last topping I'm adding today is just some light sour cream. I don't have it today, but I also like to add some guacamole or avocado to this bowl a lot, or if I want some crunch, I'll usually add some crushed up tortilla chips. But that's it. It's really easy to mix it up, the different type of bean you use, the different type of veggie, protein, everything. So super quick and easy to throw together, and this is why it's always nice to have some ingredients prepped ahead of time. I even do the bean and corn mixture ahead of time a lot so that it's just ready to add to meals. I'm actually about to make this bowl again at home now because I've got some pulled pork on hand and it's something I've been craving a lot lately. So this is a pulled pork inspired bowl. I'm making some onions on the stove just with some nonstick spray. And I love coleslaw with pulled pork, so I'm making a little bit of a lightened up version using some light mayo and apple cider vinegar. Then I also add some salt and pepper as well as honey, which I'm just using from the farmer's market to add a little sweetness to it. And once I mix that all together to form a sauce, then I just toss it on top of the coleslaw mix that I have, which is just cabbage and carrots. And it's super quick and easy to toss together, but I like to do that first so it can kind of sit and let the flavors set for a minute. So I toss the coleslaw in that and push that aside. Then I'm starting to chop up the other veggies for this bowl today. And the other veggies that I'm using are some pickles as well as banana peppers. The pulled pork I'm using today is just a pre-cooked pulled pork from Sam's Club that I like to get, and I just toss it in some barbecue sauce. I honestly go through phases with barbecue sauce. Sometimes the no sugar added Sweet Baby Ray's is my favorite, but lately I've really been liking the Noble Made brand. But I pop the bowl in the microwave with the rice and the pulled pork to heat it up, and then I can add the onion, the pickles, coleslaw, banana peppers, and then I like to top it off with just a little more of the barbecue sauce. This is another bowl that if I've got some extra points, I like to add cheese to it, whether it's like cheddar, pepper jack, or even Swiss, but I don't always, and this is perfect the way it is today. This next bowl is a fish taco inspired bowl, and it's really nice in the summer. It's super refreshing, especially with the mango salsa I'm going to be using. I first start by marinating the fish I'm using, which today I just have some cod, and I use a little bit of olive oil and some seafood blend and Old Bay seasoning. I really like pico de gallo with fish tacos, so I'm just making a batch of that I can have for the rest of the week too, but use some of it for this bowl. And this is another quick and easy recipe that's in my cookbook, but I just chop up some Roma tomatoes, some onion, cilantro, jalapeno peppers, and add some lime juice and salt. Then once I'm finished making the pico de gallo, I can just put that to the side and start cooking the fish. And when I cook the fish, I just use a pan on the stove and I just use the oil that's left over from the marinade to cook it in. And when I use oil like that, I usually do track it. It's nice that the fish is 0 points, so that helps to add some protein to the meal without adding any points. And it actually worked out perfect that I had some leftover coleslaw from the pulled pork bowl. So usually I'll just make a quick coleslaw for this fish taco recipe. Whenever I make real fish tacos, I make coleslaw for it, and I make it the same way that I made it for the bowl. So for this one, I just had to pop the rice in the microwave to heat it up. Then I'm adding a good amount of the pico de gallo, the coleslaw, and then I've got this mango salsa that I just got from Costco. I love the sweetness it adds with the crunch of the coleslaw, and sometimes when I have to use the coleslaw the next day, I'll have a little bit of the cabbage mix aside that I'll just toss in the already made coleslaw, and it gives it some more crunch again. But I add some sliced jalapenos and lime with some lime juice, and that is it. Okay, out of all the bowls that I've made, this one I have by far made the most on my weight loss journey, and it's just a Greek-inspired bowl. This one became my all-time favorite. partially because it's so easy to throw together and you can mix up the ingredients you use so often, but also I just love these roasted red peppers as well as tzatziki and feta. So I just had to heat up the base of jasmine rice, and then I added some veggie mix, some turkey burger that I just cut up, which again, I can always mix up the protein. Sometimes chicken works well, but I really like to use turkey burgers for these. Then my favorite veggies to add to these Greek bowls are definitely the roasted red peppers, artichoke hearts, and cucumber. And then I usually get this dip from Aldi. It's perfect to use like a 2-point serving. And they've actually got a few different flavors. I think this is the spinach artichoke one that I'm using today, but I use the portion that is 2 points and then I top it with some feta cheese. And then that is the finished bowl. Another protein that I also like to add, I forgot to mention, is chicken sausage. I feel like that's always a really good one to mix together with all these veggies and the feta and tzatziki and everything. So that wraps up this bowl. This next bowl I need to make more often because I enjoy it so much, and it's based off of a favorite meal that Adam and I used to get on our date nights at Cheeseburger in Paradise, which was a jerk chicken wrap. So today I'm making a jerk chicken bowl. I've got a base of brown jasmine rice, and I wanted to do breaded chicken for this, so I just popped some breaded chicken in the air fryer to cook while I'm prepping everything else. Sometimes I'll get a jerk marinade sauce for this, but today I wanted to use some Greek yogurt to make a lightened up higher protein option using some spicy Bolthouse dressing as well as some jerk seasoning. I had to heat up the base of rice, then I'm adding some chopped romaine, some roasted red pepper, some center cut bacon that I chopped up. Then I also had some leftover pico de gallo, which is actually one of my favorite parts about this bowl. And then the chicken is done cooking in the air fryer, so I just chopped that up and added it. And the wrap also had a shredded cheese like this, so I topped it with some reduced fat shredded cheese in the middle and then drizzled the jerk sauce that I made on top. I love bang bang shrimp, and this next bowl I'm making a lightened up version of it using some panko. I use a little cornstarch and then a good amount of this bang bang seasoning I had actually just gotten from Sam's Club. And once that's made, I just set up to make the shrimp. So I scramble an egg, and then I've got some raw shrimp that I toss it in. I also added some sriracha to that egg to give it some spice. I dip the shrimp into the egg mixture, and then I just add it to the bag with the panko and shake it up to get the shrimp evenly coated. Once the shrimp are coated, I just lay them out on a baking sheet that I pop in the oven. And it really doesn't take long to cook these shrimp, but I just keep an eye on them and flip them over halfway. Once they're coated and laid out on the baking sheet, I like to spray them with some nonstick olive oil spray. I feel like that helps to give them just a little bit more crunch and browns them a little better. But while those are cooking in the oven, I just get the rest of the ingredients prepped, including dicing some green onions and some cucumbers. I wanted to make a lightened up sauce for this, so I just used some light mayo, and then I've got this red hot sweet chili sauce. I wanted a good amount of the sauce, so I also added some non-fat plain Greek yogurt as well as a little lime juice, sriracha, and seasoning to add some extra flavor. And then I just heated up a serving of frozen edamame in the microwave that I'm also going to add, and I heated up the base of jasmine rice. So I can start assembling by adding the edamame, shrimp, cucumbers, and then some crunchy wonton strips, as well as the green onions. Then once I've added everything to the bowl, I just drizzle the sauce that I made on top. Next up, I'm making a chicken bacon ranch bowl. So this is another one that I usually just have the ingredients on hand and I throw together really quick and easy. Again, I keep feeling like I'm saying that about everything, but that's why these bowls make this journey so sustainable for me. For this bowl today, I'm using a lot of similar ingredients I've been using in all the other bowls, including some chopped cucumbers, some banana peppers, romaine lettuce, And those are all the 0-point foods I try to incorporate. Then, of course, we need the chicken, bacon, and ranch. So I diced up 2 slices of center cut bacon. The chicken I'm using today is my favorite freezer option. It's just Tyson blackened chicken, and I pop it in the air fryer and cook it up until it's done. Then it's always just really convenient to use my kitchen scissors to chop up the chicken as well as the romaine lettuce that I'm using. And then I really wanted some avocado on this as well. So I just sliced that up, and then I need some ranch dressing for this, which, like I mentioned before, Bolt House dressings are my favorite. This one specifically that I'm using today is their spicy ranch. So usually I just use the normal one, but I wanted a little extra kick today, especially with the blackened chicken. This one came out pretty spicy, but it was really flavorful. This is another bowl that became one of Adam's favorites, and it's a meatloaf inspired bowl. So I am making a meatloaf today using some 93% lean ground beef. I add some onion, egg, fat-free milk, and some panko breadcrumbs, as well as ketchup and Worcestershire sauce, as well as barbecue sauce. I prefer to just mix it with my hands, so I put some gloves on and mix it until it's combined. Then I put it in a loaf pan, and I top it with some extra barbecue sauce because I like when it gets that kind of nice glaze on top. And I won't use the whole meatloaf today, so this is nice where I can just have the leftovers in the fridge to even make like a meatloaf sandwich, or if I just want to make this bowl again in the next couple days, I've got the meatloaf in the fridge that I can just heat up and add to a bowl and make it the same way I'm making it now. I pop the meatloaf in the oven to bake, and while that is cooking, I also start making some veggies for this bowl. So the first veggies I'm making, I just slice up some onion and mushrooms and cook it on the stove in a pan. I also really like green beans with meatloaf, so sometimes I'll use fresh green beans, but honestly I kind of like the French style can like this, and I'll add some garlic salt to it and pop it in the microwave till it's heated. And although there's a little sauce on the meatloaf, I did want some that I could drizzle on the bowl, so I combine a little bit of coconut brown sugar with some ketchup and barbecue sauce. I also add a little garlic powder to that and mix it together, and then I set that aside while I assemble the bowl. So I already heated up the base of jasmine rice. I add the onions and mushrooms, and then I wanted something crunchy with an onion flavor, so sometimes I'll use crispy fried onions, but I didn't have those, so instead I used these Maui onion ring chips, and they were actually really good. And it's so nice that 93% lean ground beef is now 0 points, so I put 2 big slices of meatloaf on this, and then drizzled the rest of that sauce that I made on top, and that is it. It's so filling, and I have leftovers of the beans, the onion mix, and the meatloaf to be able to just make this all again tomorrow. I always get questions for vegetarian options, and I'm working to incorporate more, but this bowl is a veggie bowl that is so good. It's super filling, and I try to prioritize adding a bunch of 0-point foods to make it that way. I'm still using a base of jasmine rice, but I also wanted to add some potatoes because they're 0 points, and I can just add some seasoning, olive oil spray, and pop them in the air fryer to heat them up. Of course, I've got to include some veggie mix with this veggie bowl, and that's pepper, onion, and zucchini. I feel like sauteed peppers are one of my favorite things when it comes to this style bowl. I've also got some roasted corn that I heated up, and I added a good portion of that. I also found some vegetarian black bean burgers at the store that worked perfectly for this dish to add some extra fiber and protein. Once the potatoes were done, I added those as well as some dried edamame, which added a perfect crunch and again some extra protein and fiber, and then I just topped it with some fire chili ranch. This next bowl I'm making is a Thai peanut inspired bowl, so I'm chopping up some chicken breast in a pan that I sprayed with some nonstick spray. And while it's cooking, I add some red pepper, some garlic herb seasoning, salt, and pepper. And then I let that continue to cook while I make a peanut sauce using some peanut butter, soy sauce, toasted sesame oil, a little bit of honey, a splash of lime juice, and some garlic. I put the sauce aside and start chopping up some veggies. So today I'm using some cucumber, green onion, and then I've also got some shredded carrots and edamame that I'm cooking up. I've got my regular base of jasmine rice that I heated up, and I can start assembling the bowl with the carrots, cucumbers, green onions. Then the chicken is done cooking. But I also wanted something with a little crunch, so after I add the cooked edamame, I put on some wonton strips, and I just get the Great Value Walmart brand, and then I drizzle on that peanut sauce that I made.
Moving on, this next bowl that I'm making has a lot of veggies in it. It is a stir-fry bowl, so I'm starting by chopping up some broccoli as well as a green and red bell pepper that I'm just going to cook on the stove. Sometimes it depends on how many points I have left for the day, but usually I like to use some toasted sesame oil in the veggies when I'm cooking them. I feel like it just gives such good flavor, and then I also like to add a good amount of soy sauce. And it really doesn't take too long to make these veggies. I kind of like to cook them until they're still a little bit crisp, and especially when I'm making veggie mixes and stuff, it's important not to overcook the veggies if I'm going to be reheating them later, because then they get kind of mushy. So when I cook them on the stove, I make sure to keep them moving a lot and I don't overcook them. And I forgot to mention with this one, I also added some sugar snap peas. So that's just cooking up. And then I actually had another pack of veggies in my fridge I had to use that I realized, and it had some yellow and green zucchini squash as well as some mushrooms and onions. So I just decided to cook that in a separate pan because I'll just use these for different leftovers, but I'm still going to combine them in this bowl today. So I'm cooking up these veggies still as well as the mushrooms and onions. And for my protein for this bowl today, I actually grilled up some chicken tenderloins that I had. I had just marinated them in some teriyaki glaze that I had and grilled them outside, brought them in and cut them up to add to this bowl, as well as some Bibigo chicken and vegetable wontons, and I just steamed those in the microwave. This bowl is another really good one that's got a lot of flavor. It's a jambalaya inspired bowl, so I'm cooking up some raw shrimp with some seasoning. The specific seasoning I used was actually a kickin' chicken, but it has really good flavor for this, so I added it to this thing of tomatoes I had. It's just a can of diced tomatoes. I also added some hot sauce and seasoning to give that some flavor. And then I found some andouille styled chicken sausages, which were perfect for this meal. They have a good amount of protein, but they're not too high in points. It was 3 or 4 points per link for this. And I also wanted to be sure to include some chicken. So this had a lot of protein in it. You can see I've got some pre-cooked chicken that I just heated up, and I'm just adding that to the bowl, as well as some veggie mix that I already had made. So pepper, onion, zucchini. I also really wanted to include corn with this, and it was perfect because I had some leftover roasted corn in the fridge that I just finished off for this bowl. Then I topped it with the tomatoes and some extra hot sauce, and that was it. We go out for poke bowls all the time. It's one of our favorite meals, but it's also something that's pretty simple to make at home. Today, I didn't have any luck of finding shelled edamame, so I did have to shell it myself, but I really wanted to include it in the poke bowl. It's one of my favorite ingredients. And this one's pretty similar to the sushi bowl, but I really like to use a can of tuna for this one, and I just mix some spicy sriracha in to give it flavor, as well as like garlic, salt, and onion powder. Shrimp is also one of my favorite toppings on poke bowls, so I just cooked some up on the stove in some chili seasoning and then assembled the bowl with some carrots, cucumber, and imitation crab. And one thing that I like at the end of poke when I'm ordering is that they have some crunchy things you can add on top, like some sesame seeds and wonton strips. So I made sure to add those on my bowl at home as well. And then that is it. I also like to drizzle it with some soy sauce sometimes. I'll also add some sriracha if I want extra spice, or if I've even got extra points, I'll add some spicy mayo or a teriyaki sauce. Okay, the last bowl that we're making today is an Italian sausage bowl, and I remember growing up we'd always have Italian sausage with like tomatoes and zucchini and onion, and I really liked that. So today I'm cooking up a veggie mix using some zucchini that I'm chopping up as well as some red onion. And I just sprayed the pan with some nonstick olive oil spray to cook the veggies in it, and I let it cook for a couple minutes. Then I add some garlic and onion seasoning, and I also strained a can of diced tomatoes that I mix in. And while I'm cooking the veggies, I didn't show it, but I'm also cooking up the Italian sausage that I'm using. So sometimes I switch up the sausage that I use for this, but one of my favorites to use is, I think the brand Jenny O. They have a sweet Italian sausage and a spicy Italian sausage that they offer, and it's turkey, so it's lower in points, it's got a good amount of protein, and they're super quick and easy to just cook up on the stove and slice them up to add to a bowl. And then it's nice to have the leftovers too, because sometimes I'll just make like a sandwich out of them or something like that the next day, or if I've got all these veggies prepped and stuff, I can make another bowl with them. Then the same way I have for every other bowl, I just use my food scale to weigh out a portion of cooked jasmine rice. I flatten that out and then I pop it in the microwave. And one thing I forgot to mention, sometimes if the jasmine rice gets kind of dry, you can spray it with a little water, and then that helps it in the microwave to kind of add some moisture back in. But I had some veggie mix made, which is just some pepper and onions today. I had the zucchini in the other mix, so it worked out well that this one didn't have zucchini today, but I added a good amount of that, and then the tomato zucchini mixture. Then I've got my cooked turkey sausage that I sliced up, the tomato mixture that's done cooking, and then I add some shredded light mozzarella cheese. Then I didn't show it, but sometimes I like to top this bowl with a little garlic salt or oregano to add some extra flavor, but that is it for the Italian sausage bowl. Keeping meals quick and easy like this with already prepped ingredients has really made this journey so much more sustainable for me. And like I mentioned with these bowls, you really can mix it up based on whatever ingredients you have on hand, whatever base you want to use, whether it's jasmine rice, cauliflower rice, a mix of both. You can go ahead and do whatever you want to do that works best for you on your journey. Thank you guys for watching, and I hope you found this helpful.